I hid a baby monitor in my husband's suitcase. What I heard next changed everything. Trust is the foundation of marriage. But what happens when that foundation cracks? When suspicion plants its seed in your mind and grows until you can't ignore it anymore? My name is Keisha Monroe, and I thought I knew my husband. I thought our life together was built on honesty, loyalty, and the kind of love that survives storms. But sometimes the person sleeping beside you every night is a stranger wearing a familiar face. What I discovered through that baby monitor didn't just break my heart. It shattered everything I believed about love, fidelity, commitment, and the man I'd vowed to spend forever with. Viewers, before we dive into this story, I need you to do something for me. If stories like this, real, raw, and absolutely life-changing, speak to your soul, hit that subscribe button right now. Seriously, don't just scroll past this. We pour our hearts into bringing you narratives that matter, tales that make you think, feel, and sometimes even cry. And I want to know where you're watching from. Are you in Atlanta? Maybe Los Angeles, Toronto, London, Lagos? Drop your city in the comments below. Let's build a community of people who believe in the power of true stories. And don't forget to smash that like button. It helps us reach more people who need to hear these lessons. Now, let's get into what happened. The bathroom mirror was still fogged when I heard him humming, that low, smooth melody he always sang when he was in a good mood. Devin Reeves, my husband of 8 years. The man who'd promised me the world on a rooftop in Chicago under a sky full of stars. He emerged from the steam wearing his charcoal gray suit, the one that made his shoulders look broader, his presence more commanding. He smelled of sandalwood and ambition, his cologne mixing with the faint scent of coffee brewing downstairs. "Big day?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching him knot his burgundy tie with practiced precision. "Huge," he said, flashing that megawatt smile that had first caught my attention at a financial summit 9 years ago. "The Houston acquisition deal closes today. If this goes through, we're looking at a 7-figure commission, babe. 7 figures. I forced a smile. "That's amazing, Devin." He crossed the room, kissed my forehead, his lips warm and familiar. "I'll be back Friday night. Late, probably. You know how these corporate negotiations drag on." I knew, or at least I thought I did. For the past 3 months, Devin had been traveling constantly. Houston, Miami, Charlotte, Dallas. Always another investment opportunity, another high-stakes meeting, another merger that required his immediate attention. He was a senior acquisition specialist at Meridian Capital Group, one of the most prestigious private equity firms on the East Coast. His job demanded travel. I understood that. I'd understood it for 8 years. But 3 months ago, something shifted. The late-night phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. The text messages he angled away from my view. The way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore, like he was performing happiness rather than living it. And then there was the credit card statement I'd accidentally opened last week. A charge for $1,200 at a luxury jewelry boutique in Miami, a city he'd visited for business 2 weeks prior. When I asked him about it, he'd laughed it off. "Client gift, Keisha. You know how it is. Got to keep the whales happy." Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe 8 years of marriage had made me complacent, searching for problems where none existed. But my grandmother used to say, "Baby girl, trust your gut. It knows things your heart doesn't want to admit." And my gut was screaming. I watched him pack his leather suitcase, neatly folded dress shirts, Italian loafers, his portable charger, that expensive electric shaver I'd bought him for Christmas. Everything methodical, organized, the way Devin always operated. He zipped it closed with a satisfied sigh. "I'll miss you," he said, pulling me into an embrace. His heartbeat was steady against my cheek. "Hold down the fort while I'm gone?" "Always," I whispered, but the word tasted like ash in my mouth. After he left, the house fell into that peculiar silence that only comes when someone you love walks out the door. Our home in the suburbs of Philadelphia was beautiful. 4 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a backyard with a garden I'd spent 2 summers perfecting. We'd bought it together 3 years ago, back when I still believed in us without question. Back when every "I love you" felt like gospel truth. I poured another cup of coffee, sat at the kitchen island, and stared at my phone. My best friend Nadia had been telling me for weeks to stop worrying. "Girl, you're trippin'. Devin loves you. He's just stressed with work. You know how men get when they're trying to climb that corporate ladder." But Nadia hadn't seen what I'd seen. The distance in his eyes, the way he flinched when I touched his phone, the expensive lingerie charge on the credit card that was 2 sizes too small for me. That's when the idea hit me. The baby monitor. We'd bought it 2 years ago when we were talking about starting a family, back when that conversation didn't make Devin's jaw tighten with discomfort. It had been sitting in the hall closet ever since, unused, a symbol of plans postponed indefinitely. It was a high-end model, audio and video, motion-activated, with a range that stretched across several rooms. I'd forgotten we even had it. My hands trembled as I retrieved the box from the closet. The monitor was small, discreet, about the size of a deck of cards. It could easily fit into one of the interior pockets of his suitcase without being detected. The rational part of my brain screamed at me to stop. This was crossing a line. This was violating his privacy, his trust, the sacred boundaries of our marriage. But the other part, the part that had been losing sleep for 3 months, that had cried silently in the shower, that had started questioning every word out of his mouth, that part didn't care about boundaries anymore. I had to know. I deserved to know. I waited until Devin texted me from the airport. "Boarding now. Love you." 3 words that used to make my heart flutter. Now they just made me nauseous. He'd be in Houston by early afternoon. His hotel check-in wasn't until 3. That gave me a window. I drove to his office downtown, my pulse hammering in my ears. The parking garage was nearly empty. Most people were already at lunch. I used the spare key card he'd given me years ago for emergencies, rode the elevator to the 15th floor, and walked into his pristine corner office overlooking the Delaware River. Everything was immaculate. Awards on the wall, framed photographs of us on vacation in Aruba, a humidor of expensive cigars a client had gifted him. On his desk sat his backup suitcase, identical to the one he'd taken to the airport. Devin was meticulous. He always kept a duplicate packed for unexpected trips. My hands shook as I unzipped it. The clothes inside still smelled faintly of him. I found the interior pocket, the one he used for his tablet and important documents, and slipped the baby monitor inside, and nestling it between a stack of business folders. It was virtually invisible. He'd never notice it unless he went looking. I zipped the suitcase closed, walked out, and drove home in complete silence. No music, no podcasts, just the sound of my own breathing and the hum of the engine. When I got home, I sat on the couch and stared at the monitor's receiver screen on my phone. It showed nothing yet, just darkness and the faint sound of fabric rustling. He wouldn't even open that suitcase until he reached his hotel. Hours passed. I tried to distract myself, folded laundry, watered the plants, watched half of a cooking show without absorbing a single moment. My phone sat beside me on the couch, screen dark, waiting. At 4:47 p.m., it buzzed with Devin's text. "Just checked in. Hotel's nice. Heading to dinner with the team. I'll call you later," I typed back. "Sounds good. Be safe. Love you." The lie felt heavy on my fingers. At 6:15 p.m., the monitor activated. The motion sensor had detected movement. I grabbed my phone, heart slamming against my ribs, and opened the app. The video was grainy, but clear enough. Devin's hotel room came into view. A spacious suite with floor-to-ceiling windows, a king-sized bed with crisp white linens, modern furniture that screamed luxury accommodations. The audio crackled to life. I heard his voice first. "Yeah, I'm here. Room 804. A pause. Then softer, almost tender. "I can't wait to see you either." My stomach dropped. The room spun. I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles white. Who was he talking to? The video showed him moving around the room, unpacking a few items, checking his reflection in the mirror. He looked happy, genuinely, effortlessly happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. Then came the knock on the door. 3 sharp raps. Devon crossed the room quickly, almost eagerly. The monitor's angle didn't capture the doorway clearly, but I heard the door open. I heard his voice shift into something I didn't recognize. Warm, intimate, vulnerable. "Hey, you!" "Hey, yourself," a woman's voice replied. Smooth, confident, laced with familiarity that made my blood run cold. The door closed. Footsteps. Then silence for a few agonizing seconds. When the audio picked up again, I heard laughter, his deep rumble mixing with her light, musical tone. They were close. Too close. "I missed you," Devon said. "It's been too long." "2 weeks feels like forever," she replied. 2 weeks. Miami. The jewelry charge. The pieces clicked together like a puzzle I'd been too afraid to complete. My vision blurred with tears, but I couldn't look away from the screen. I had to see. I had to know. The monitor's video feed showed shadows moving across the hotel room walls. I heard the sound of a cork popping, champagne. Glasses clinking together in a toast I couldn't see, but could imagine with devastating clarity. Devon's laughter rang through the speaker, genuine and unguarded, in a way he hadn't laughed with me in months. My chest tightened until I thought my ribs might crack. "To us!" the woman said. Her voice was sultry, dripping with confidence. "To finally being together without hiding." "To us!" Devon echoed. The sound of their glasses meeting again pierced through me like broken glass. I wanted to turn it off. I wanted to throw my phone across the room and pretend I'd never heard any of this. But I sat frozen on our couch. The same couch where we'd watched movies, where he'd proposed to me during a snowstorm 8 years ago, where we'd talked about baby names that would never be used, and I listened to my marriage disintegrate in real time. "This suite is gorgeous," she said. I could hear fabric rustling, footsteps moving deeper into the room. "You always pick the best hotels." "Only the best for you, Simone." Simone. The name hit me like a physical blow. I'd heard that name before. Simone Garrett. She worked at Meridian Capital Group, same as Devon. I'd met her exactly once at the company holiday party 2 years ago. Tall, stunning, with flawless ebony skin and a smile that could light up a boardroom. She'd been friendly enough, professional, exchanged pleasantries about the catering and the tacky decorations. Devon had introduced her as one of our top strategists, brilliant mind for market analysis. He'd said it with admiration, but I'd thought nothing of it. Why would I? She was a colleague. This was business, except it wasn't. "How much time do we have before your dinner?" Simone asked. The question was casual, but underneath it was an implication that made bile rise in my throat. "An hour," Devon said. "Maybe 90 minutes. They won't miss me if I'm a little late." 90 minutes, she repeated, her voice dropping lower. "We can work with that." The audio went quiet for a moment, except for faint background noise, the hum of the air conditioning, distant traffic from the street below. Then I heard movement, closer to where the monitor was hidden. Devon must have set his suitcase on the luggage rack near the closet. The video angle shifted slightly, now showing more of the room. I could see the edge of the bed, the champagne bottle on the nightstand, 2 glasses half full of golden liquid. And then I saw them, Devon and Simone, standing by the window, silhouetted against the Houston skyline. His hands were on her waist, her arms draped around his neck. They swayed slightly, like they were dancing to music only they could hear. It was intimate in a way that transcended physical touch. It was comfortable, familiar, the kind of closeness that comes from time and repetition. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a relationship. "I hate that you have to go back to her," Simone said quietly. "I hate pretending you're not mine." Her. She meant me, the wife, the obstacle. The woman who'd given Devon 8 years of loyalty, support, and unconditional love. I was reduced to a pronoun, an inconvenience. Devon sighed, and I heard something in that exhale that shattered what remained of my heart. Resignation. I know, but we've talked about this. The timing has to be right. The divorce has to be strategic. I can't afford to lose half my assets in a messy split. Keisha's entitled to everything we've built together, and with the promotion coming up— I know, Simone interrupted. You've explained it 1,000,000 times. I'm tired of being the secret, Devon. I love you. I want to be with you openly. Divorce, promotion, assets. They discussed this, planned it, calculated the best time to discard me like an outdated investment portfolio. The room started spinning. I pressed my palm against my mouth to keep from screaming. Our neighbors couldn't hear me fall apart. Not yet. Not until I figured out what to do with this information that was consuming me from the inside out. I love you too, Devon said, his voice tender in a way I remembered from our early years together. And we will be together. Soon, I promise. Just a few more months. Once the Houston acquisition is finalized and my partnership is official, I'll file. Clean, quiet, no drama. Then it's you and me, exactly how we've always planned. Always planned. How long had this been going on? Months? Years? I thought back through our marriage, searching for signs I'd missed. The business trips that increased over the past year. The new cologne. The gym membership he'd suddenly committed to. The way he'd started working late more often. Coming home smelling like perfume, he'd explain away as packed elevator or dinner with clients. I'd believed him. Every single time, I'd believed him. I was such a fool. The video showed Devon kissing her. Not a peck, not a casual gesture. A deep, passionate kiss that belonged in a romance film. Simone's fingers tangled in his hair. His hands pulled her closer. They moved toward the bed, out of the camera's range, but the audio continued. I heard clothes rustling, whispered words I couldn't make out, laughter that felt like acid in my ears. I turned off the monitor. I couldn't watch anymore, couldn't listen. My hands shook so violently, I nearly dropped the phone. Tears streamed down my face, hot and relentless. The living room blurred around me. Everything we'd built, the home, the memories, the future we'd planned. It was all a lie. A performance Devon had been staging while building a real life with someone else. For hours, I sat in the dark. I didn't turn on lights when the sun set. I didn't eat dinner. I just sat there, numb and shattered, replaying everything I'd heard. The champagne toast. Her voice saying she missed him. Him saying he loved her. The casual way they discussed my existence as a problem to be solved, a complication to be managed until the timing was strategic. My phone buzzed around 10 p.m. Devon's name lit up the screen. For a moment, I considered not answering. But what would that accomplish? He couldn't know I knew. Not yet. Not until I figured out my next move. I answered on the third ring, forcing my voice to sound normal. Hey! Hey, baby, he said, and I heard exhaustion in his tone. Probably tired from his dinner with the team that had actually been spent in bed with Simone. Just wanted to check in before I crashed. Dinner ran long. These Houston guys are relentless. Sounds exhausting, I said flatly. You okay? You sound off. Just tired, long day. Get some rest. I'll call you tomorrow. Devon, I said before he could hang up. Yeah? I love you. The words felt like swallowing poison, but I needed to say them. Needed to hear his response. I love you too, Keisha. Always. Always. The word he'd just used with Simone barely hours ago. The lie tasted different now that I knew what it was covering. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness and made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. I wasn't going to cry, beg, or demand explanations. Devon Reeves thought he was playing chess, while I was stuck playing checkers. He thought he could strategize his way out of our marriage on his terms, at his convenience, when the timing suited his financial interests and career aspirations. He was wrong. If Devon wanted to treat our marriage like a business transaction, then I would respond in kind. I called my lawyer friend, Jasmine Chen, at 11 at night. She answered on the second ring, voice alert, despite the late hour. Keisha, what's wrong? I need your help, I said, my voice steady now, tears dried, replaced by cold clarity. And I need you to keep this completely confidential. Always. What's going on? My husband is having an affair. He's planning to divorce me strategically to protect his assets. I have recordings, video and audio evidence, and I need to move first before he even knows what hit him. Jasmine was quiet for a moment. Then, tell me everything. I spent the next hour detailing what I'd discovered. The baby monitor, the hotel room, the conversation about timing and assets, and his upcoming partnership. Jasmine listened without interruption, and when I finished, I could hear the grim satisfaction in her voice. Keisha, in Pennsylvania, we're an equitable distribution state, and with evidence of adultery, especially premeditated financial planning to diminish marital assets. You're in an incredibly strong position. We need to act fast before he starts moving money or hiding assets. Can you access his financial records? I have passwords to everything, I said. Joint accounts, investment portfolios, retirement funds. He never thought I'd need them. Perfect. Here's what we're going to do. By 2 a.m., I had copies of every financial document Devon and I shared. Bank statements, investment accounts, property deeds, his partnership agreement with Meridian Capital, tax returns from the past 5 years. Jasmine had connected me with a forensic accountant who specialized in high-net-worth divorces. We scheduled an emergency meeting for the following morning. Devon called the next day during his lunch break, cheerful and chatty. Hey babe, how's your day? Fine, I said, sitting in Jasmine's office, signing preliminary divorce papers while he spoke. Same old. How's Houston? Productive. Really productive. I think we'll close this deal by Thursday. Might even come home early. That'd be nice, I said, my voice pleasant, betraying nothing. Miss you? He said. Miss you too. Another lie. But this time, I was the one in control of the narrative. Thursday morning, Devon texted that his flight would land at 6 p.m. He'd be home by 8. Can't wait to see you, he wrote, adding a heart emoji that made my stomach turn. I responded with a matching heart, playing the role of devoted wife one last time. By 5 p.m., everything was in place. Jasmine had filed the divorce petition with the court. The forensic accountant had identified 3 separate accounts Devon had opened in the past 6 months, accounts I'd never known existed, totaling over $200,000. Money he'd been systematically moving from our joint investments into private holdings. Preparation for his exit. His strategic divorce. Except I'd beaten him to it. I'd also done something else, something Jasmine had initially advised against, but I'd insisted on. I'd called Meridian Capital Group's HR department that morning and requested a meeting with their compliance officer. I explained that I had evidence of an intimate relationship between 2 employees, a relationship that violated the company's ethics policy prohibiting romantic involvement between senior staff members, especially when one held authority over the other. Devon was technically Simone's superior. Their affair wasn't just infidelity, it was a corporate liability. The compliance officer, a stern woman named Patricia Holloway, had been very interested in my recording. Very interested indeed. When Devon walked through our front door at 8:17 p.m., rolling his suitcase behind him, he looked tired but content. The faint scent of Simone's perfume still clung to his shirt collar, jasmine and vanilla, distinctly not mine. He smiled when he saw me in the kitchen. Something smells amazing, he said, noticing the pasta I'd prepared. His favorite, fettuccine alfredo with blackened chicken, a last supper of sorts. Thought we could have a nice dinner, I said, plating the food with steady hands. Celebrate you closing the deal. It's not official yet, but yeah, it's basically done. He loosened his tie, sat at the dining table, the same table where we'd hosted Thanksgiving dinners and celebrated anniversaries. "This looks perfect, babe. You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "No trouble at all," I said, sitting across from him. I watched him take the first bite, watched him relax into the comfortable fiction that everything was fine, that I was still the naive wife waiting patiently at home while he built a future with another woman. We made small talk through dinner. He told me exaggerated stories about the Houston acquisition, carefully edited versions that omitted any mention of Simone or hotel rooms or champagne toasts. I nodded in the right places, asked appropriate questions, laughed at his jokes. Academy Award-worthy performance from both of us. After dinner, as he reached for his second glass of wine, I set my fork down carefully. "Devin, we need to talk." His expression shifted slightly, not quite concern, but awareness. "About what?" "About Simone." The color drained from his face. His hand froze halfway to the wine glass. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Caught, exposed, stripped of all pretense. Then he tried to recover. "Simone, what about her?" "Don't," I said quietly. Don't insult me by pretending you don't know what I'm talking about." His jaw tightened. He set the glass down, calculation replacing shock in his eyes. This was Devin the negotiator, Devin the strategist, trying to figure out his next move. "Keisha, I don't know what you think. Room 804, Houston Grandview Hotel." I interrupted. "Champagne, 90 minutes before your team dinner. Conversations about timing and assets, and divorcing me strategically once your partnership is secured." I pulled out my phone, opened the monitor app, and turned the screen toward him. The video showed him and Simone by the window, locked in their embrace. The audio played their conversation about loving each other, about her being tired of secrets. He stared at the screen, his expression cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally something that looked like respect. Or maybe fear. "You bugged my suitcase?" "Baby monitor," I corrected. "The one we bought when we thought we were building a family together. Turns out it had a different use after all." "Keisha." He reached across the table, but I pulled back. "Don't touch me." My voice was ice. "You don't get to touch me ever again. You lost that privilege the moment you decided to build a life with someone else while pretending to build one with me." "It's not. It's complicated," he started, but I cut him off with a laugh that had no humor in it. "Complicated? No, Devin. Complicated is figuring out mortgage refinancing or dealing with insurance claims. What you did was calculated, methodical. You opened secret bank accounts. You moved $200,000 without telling me. You planned every detail of how to leave me while maximizing your financial position. That's not complicated. That's premeditated betrayal." His face hardened. The mask slipped entirely. This was the real Devin, the one who'd been hiding behind 8 years of performance. "So what now? You're going to what? Divorce me? Take half my money and play the victim?" "Oh, it's so much better than that," I said, standing up. I walked to the counter and retrieved the manila envelope Jasmine had prepared. I dropped it in front of him. "Divorce papers, already filed, already served. You'll notice the petition includes documentation of your affair, your financial deception, and a request for not just equitable distribution, but additional damages for fraud and emotional distress." He opened the envelope, scanning the pages, his face growing redder with each paragraph. "You can't. I can." And I did. My attorney is very good, Devin. Almost as good as the forensic accountant who found every hidden account, every suspicious transaction, every penny you tried to squirrel away. I paused, letting that sink in. "But that's not even the best part." His eyes snapped up to mine. "What else?" I contacted Meridian Capital's compliance office, shared my recordings with them. Turns out, senior staff engaging in undisclosed romantic relationships especially when one has supervisory authority over the other, violates company ethics policy. Section 14, paragraph 3, if you're curious. It's a terminable offense. The blood drained from his face completely now. Keisha, no, you didn't. I did. Patricia Holloway was very thorough. She assured me they take these violations seriously, especially when those violations could expose the company to potential lawsuits or liability. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. I imagine you'll be hearing from HR very soon, probably Monday morning. Maybe Simone, too. You vindictive! He stood abruptly, the chair scraping violently against the floor. Careful, I warned. Remember, everything is documented now, including this conversation. I'd hate for your attorney to see you losing control. He stopped, breathing hard, fists clenched. The man I'd loved, the man who'd promised me forever under Chicago stars, was gone. What stood in his place was a stranger wearing his face, desperate and cornered. Why? He asked finally, voice breaking. Why go this far? Because you taught me something important, I said softly. You taught me that love isn't just about feelings, it's about respect, honesty, commitment. You taught me that by showing me the complete absence of those things. And if you want to treat marriage like a business transaction, then I'll treat divorce the same way. Except I'm better at this game than you thought. He grabbed his jacket from the chair, his movements sharp and angry. This isn't over. Yes, it is. It's been over for months, probably longer. I was just the last one to know. I followed him to the door. You can stay at Simone's place, or get a hotel room, but you're not staying here. This is my house, too. Actually, the deed is in both our names, and my attorney has already filed a motion for exclusive occupancy based on emotional distress. You'll receive notice tomorrow. Until then, I suggest you pack a bag and leave voluntarily, or I'll call the police for trespassing. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe I'd never let him see this version of me, the version who didn't crumble, who didn't beg, who met betrayal with cold, calculated strategy. I loved you, he said quietly. No, I corrected. You loved what I represented. Stability, respectability, the perfect wife in the perfect home while you built a real life somewhere else. That's not love, Devin. That's convenience. He left without another word, pulling his suitcase behind him, the same suitcase that had carried my baby monitor into his betrayal. The door closed with a soft click. I stood in the entryway for a long moment, listening to the silence. Real silence this time, not the oppressive weight of secrets and lies. See, but the clean, clear silence of truth finally exposed. My phone rang. Jasmine. He's gone, I said before she could ask. Good. How are you holding up? I don't know yet. Ask me in a month. For what it's worth, you handled this perfectly. Most people would have confronted him emotionally, given him time to hide assets or prepare. You were smarter. I learned from the best, I said, thinking of Devin's own strategic planning turned against him. What happens next? Now we wait. His attorney will respond to the petition. We'll go through discovery, asset evaluation, all the standard procedures. But with your evidence, Keisha, this isn't going to trial. He'll settle. Probably quickly, especially if Meridian terminates his employment. He won't want this dragged out publicly. And Simone? That's between her and HR. But I doubt she'll escape unscathed either. These companies don't mess around with ethics violations, especially at the senior level. After I hung up, I walked through our home. My home now. Every room held memories of the life I'd thought we were building. The kitchen where we'd cooked together on Sunday mornings. The living room where we'd argued over paint colors. The bedroom where we'd made promises I'd believed were sacred. But I wasn't that woman anymore. The woman who'd hidden a baby monitor in her husband's suitcase wasn't the same woman who'd existed a week ago. That woman had been trusting, perhaps too trusting. She'd believed in the sanctity of marriage vows, in the power of commitment, in the fundamental goodness of the man she'd chosen to build a life with. This new woman, the one standing in the middle of an empty house. Our divorce papers filed, assets secured, betrayal avenged. She was harder, wiser, less willing to accept comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. 3 weeks later, I received confirmation that Meridian Capital had terminated Devon's employment effective immediately. Simone had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The Houston acquisition deal had fallen apart without Devon to close it, costing the firm millions and cementing their decision to cut ties. His partnership, the promotion he'd been banking on to financially cushion his divorce from me, evaporated overnight. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. I received 63% of our marital assets, including the house, thanks to Pennsylvania's equitable distribution laws and the evidence of Devon's financial deception. The judge had not been sympathetic to a man who'd systematically hidden money while planning to leave his wife. Devon tried to contact me several times during those months. Texts apologizing, phone calls I didn't answer, even a letter delivered by his attorney asking if we could talk like adults. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. The baby monitor had said everything that mattered. Viewers, that's what happened when I hid a baby monitor in my husband's suitcase. What I heard changed everything: my marriage, my future, my understanding of who I could trust. But it also gave me something unexpected: clarity. Sometimes the worst discoveries lead to the best decisions. Sometimes the pain of truth is better than the comfort of lies. I'm rebuilding now. New job, new routines, new dreams that belong only to me. Hi, the house still feels too big sometimes, too quiet. But it's an honest quiet. No secrets lurking in corners. No betrayals waiting to surface. Just me, learning who I am when I'm not performing the role of devoted wife to a man who never deserved my devotion. If this story moved you, if it made you think about truth, trust, loyalty, and what happens when those foundations crumble, I need you to do something. Drop a comment right now and tell me what you would have done. Would you have confronted him immediately? Would you have gathered evidence like I did? And most importantly, where are you watching from? New York? Chicago? Miami? London? Johannesburg? Let's connect. And don't forget to subscribe and like this video, because stories like this, real stories about real choices, need to be heard. Remember, trust your gut. It knows things your heart doesn't want to admit.